What's going on, everyone? This is Eric coming at you from just outside of Hartford, Connecticut, live. And, yeah. So this video is just going to be me quickly going over the past 48 hours of the 2020, I guess we're still in 2021 technically, but essentially the 2022 NFL season. Now, the 2022 NFL season is not officially began yet. That'll be happening in just over a week, but there's still been a lot of reported deals, a lot of reported happenings at this point. And here we are, March 9th. We've just had so much happen these past 48 hours that normally I would just try to do like a video in a week or so, kind of looking at the upcoming. But there's just so much going on that we have to do a video right now, in my opinion. So, of course, first things first, yes, we do have to discuss it. Calvin Ridley. This almost got a video in and of itself, but I decided, you know what? No, I'm not gonna. As newsworthy as it is, we here in Heartland Sports don't necessarily go out and do every last possible thing. You know, everything as it's breaking news. We normally cover it in the future, but so Calvin Ridley. It was reported on, today's Wednesday, Monday, March 7th, around 3:30-ish p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that Calvin Ridley was suspended for the entirety of the 2022 season. Now, this is, of course, due to him betting on NFL games. So, we all know the story of Pete Rose. He's banned for baseball for life because he bet on MLB games. But there hasn't been a ton of NFL players who... Now, the NFL does have rules where you are allowed to bet on, like, basketball or baseball or hockey if you're an NFL player. That's perfectly fine. But you can't bet on football. And that does make sense because you could hypothetically have insider knowledge on, you know, let's just use this game here, for example. You could know that a couple players here on Seattle's defense, like Bobby Wagner, Derek Brooks, Green, you know, these guys could all be dealing with injuries that aren't known to the public. And you could say, all right, well, because of this, I'm going to bet whatever the Falcons are. I'm going to bet money line on the Falcons or whatever. And then the Falcons pull off a quote-unquote upset because of unknown injuries. You benefit from that. So that's what happened. But basically, what ends up happening is Ridley, it's alleged during a stretch in November when he was taking his mental health break, he bet $1,500 total on the NFL games. So it's... obviously, for an NFL player, that's not a lot of money, but the fact of the matter is, you cannot bet on NFL games. He did some parlays, and I know he bet on the Falcons to win a game in that parlay, which, if you don't know what a parlay is, essentially where you group together some bets. Like, I think he did a 3-game, a 5-game, and an 8-game parlay. So what he would do is, we'll just use a 3-game parlay, for example. So he would bet in that 3-game parlay that the Eagles win, the Cowboys win, and we'll say the Falcons win. Now, in order for him to win his bet, all three of those things need to happen. So, even if, let's just say he bets an 8-game parlay, and 7 of those teams win, and the Monday night game, his team that he picked loses, he loses. You don't win. It's done. You can cash out early, depending on what you're doing, but you lose. But anyways, beyond the point, Ridley got caught. The NFL was investigating him. They alerted the Falcons in early February, so they knew for about a month, and they let him know, hey, listen, you know, we caught him betting. We know he bet, so we're going to investigate. We're going to make sure that we get this right. So when the news came out, you know, Ridley was already a hot topic for this offseason. Everyone was talking about, okay, will Ridley get traded? Is Ridley going to be traded? Who's going to get him? That's not going to happen anymore. Now it's, will he get a second shot? Obviously, he's a former first-round pick, extremely talented player. There's high expectations for him in the future, but it's just kind of a slap in the face. And I mentioned before that there's not a lot of players that have really been banned for betting on football. There's only a few. Alex Karras back in 1963. Another player nicknamed the Golden Boy, Paul Hornung, was banned. Another rookie this time, who was a quarterback, was banned in 83. And then we had, of course, Josh Shaw banned in 2019, and now Calvin Ridley. So only 5 players have been banned for betting on football. Now, a lot of people have asked, I've been talking to a few other friends in group chats and stuff, and people are saying, why can't you bet on football? That's kind of stupid. Well, if you remember earlier here, I did mention the whole you could have insider knowledge. Now, it was proven that he didn't have insider knowledge per se, but still, you can't bet on football, and you could thank baseball for that. Obviously, we did the whole Black Sox scandal about a year ago, so that right there makes it where you can't. Baseball set the precedent, and the other sports just said, you know what, that's a good idea. We don't want a scandal shaking us to the core. Now, obviously, I'd say it's pretty safe to call Ridley the most well-known player banned for betting on sports in at least the 21st century, but it's such a small, finite amount of players that have been banned for betting in the 21st century that it is what it is. So, what is a little concerning, though, is that some of the other guys who have got caught, betting on football do have some criminal records to an extent. Nothing insane, but... And then the other thing, of course, is that we might not even see Ridley return in 2023. He's eligible to apply to be reinstated on March 7th, 2023, but that doesn't mean he's going to be approved. He's suspended indefinitely. Odds are he'll be back for 2023, but it's not written in stone. He can still be suspended for the entire 2023 season. His career could be over. Where do I stand on this? Simply put, I understand why betting on football is not legal, but, he was away from the team. He did say, I couldn't even watch football all the time. He didn't want to talk to anyone about football. The smart thing he should have done is he should have consulted the NFL, and he should have said, listen, I know I can't bet on football. Is there anything I can do that can kind of help me out here? I want to place a bet. Is there anything I can do? And obviously the NFL is going to say no, and they're going to watch you a little more. But fact of the matter is, you're not suspended at this point. You're not going to be banned indefinitely banned. Obviously, he's losing a lot of money. Any future contracts he's going to get, they're going to put clauses in said contract, assuming he gets a second chance. Teams are going to be more skeptical when looking at him. His value just plummets. So he really hurt himself for this one. He really hurt himself. There's that whole little meme going around saying, he bet $1,500 and lost $10 million. Those are the worst odds ever. Yes, but, it's not fair. I get that. But you gotta think about it from a sports perspective. 100 years ago, Black Sox scandal. So that's why the NFL took a hardline stance. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I do understand where they're coming from. So I'm going to leave it at that. Now, that was essentially the big news from Monday. Now, we had some other big news come up the next day, Tuesday. We had a couple of quarterbacks make the headlines. First and foremost, we had Aaron Rodgers. Now, Rodgers, it was believed, the whole thing was, will Rodgers become a free agent? Is Rodgers going to test free agency? Or, is he going to opt out of his contract? Is he going to be traded? So he comes out, and Aaron Rodgers has officially signed a contract to stay with the Green Bay Packers. Now, it was reported to be a massive 4-year deal, but Rodgers came out after the fact, and he said, well, yes, I am proud to say that I'm staying in Green Bay, but the contract that was reported is not true. It's over-exaggerated. The numbers are inaccurate. So I'm not going to speculate how many years, what the numbers are. I'm not here to do any of that. But it was reported that he got a massive, I think it was a 4-year, $200 million deal with $150 million guaranteed. That's, according to Rodgers, not true. We'll eventually see what happens. But it's interesting for the Packers because there's just so much problems with that team cap-wise that I'm shocked they were able to even bring back Rodgers, especially since you already have a former first-round pick of yours from 2020 in Jordan Love still on the team. Now Love is speculated to be traded. We'll see what happens with that, but that's neither here nor there. So Rodgers stays with the team, But Aaron Rodgers, deciding to stay with the Packers was quickly overshadowed by Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson had a lot of speculation going around with him, and he was considered to be one of the trade targets. Now, a lot of GMs and everything, a lot of fans were speculating, oh, Russell Wilson's going to be traded. Seattle came out, and they essentially were talking with the Washington Commanders about a trade, and Seattle kind of backed away. Now, it was later reported that the Commanders offered Seattle 3 first-round picks, and Seattle said no. The whole thing is they don't want to keep him in the NFC. I understand that. You don't want your franchise's best ever quarterback, and there's no really debating that at this point, to play in your conference. If you don't want him there, if you got to get rid of him, you let him go, and you put him in an AFC team where you play him once every 4 years. Now there's a chance to play him every other year. I get that. And, of course, there's a Super Bowl, but clearly Seattle does not think they're a Super Bowl contender right now. I don't think anyone's going to really argue that. But they traded him to the Denver Broncos. Now, this was a huge trade, and this will, of course, get looked at some point, too. But it's the moving parts that each side got in this. So, of course, Denver gets Russell Wilson, and Denver is going to get I believe it was a 4th-round pick in this deal, a 4th or a 5th-round pick as well. I'm just trying to get the exact part of this trade, and it's easier said than done, in all honesty. But Russell Wilson to Denver, I love the fit. Before I get to the whole thing, they have a super talented receiving core there. I just love the potential there. Of course, you have him in the Mile High City. He might not run as much as he did, just because it's easier said than done nowadays, especially since he's on the wrong side of 30 and he's in Denver. It's going to be harder for him to run. He was already stopping the rush as much as he could, especially recently in 2021, but it is what it is. He does bring stability to Denver. They needed a quarterback. They tried to get Drew Lock, which didn't pan out. He didn't work out like they had hoped. So it makes sense to make a splash. And obviously in the draft this year, there's not a big-name quarterback. This actually hurts some of those draft teams, teams that have earlier picks that might want to trade down. This hurts them a little bit. But we'll have to see. I do love the move for Denver, though. For Seattle, here's what you get in return. So they get quarterback Drew Lock, tight end Noah Fant, defensive lineman, we'll say defensive end mostly, Shelby Harris, a pair of first-round picks in 2022, which includes the 9th overall, and 2023, a pair of second-round picks, the 40th overall in 2022, and their 2023 second-round pick, and a 2022 fifth-round selection for Wilson and a 2022 fourth. So it's a big trade. Obviously, a lot of moving parts with the draft picks. First reaction, Drew Lock probably isn't going to pan out, unfortunately. I don't know if they picked up his 5th-year option or not, or if they will, but we'll have to see what happens with that. Drew Lock, I don't know if he's going to be the answer. I think it's just kind of let's take a shot in the dark on a former first-round pick. Noah Fant. So I've heard a lot of people say Noah Fant, some say Font. I'm going to go with Fant here. Noah Fant's a pretty talented receiver. He's a pretty talented receiving tight end, I should say. I do like what he brings to the table, but is he going to be a real solution? I don't think so. I don't think he's going to be like a crucial piece for this team for a while. We'll have to see what happens with him. Shelby Harris, to me, was the best of the 3 players that they got. Now, a lot of people, when they were talking this trade, they were like, you could tell like an NFL fan versus a fan of a certain team. So people were like, oh, well, they got Fant, Lock, and some defensive linemen. And I would point out, I'm like, some defensive linemen, Shelby Harris is underrated. He's one of the better defensive linemen in the game. I haven't talked about him before. That's on me. But Shelby Harris is one of the better defensive linemen in the game. He gets to the quarterback. He's a good run stopper. So I love that part of the trade for Seattle. They needed some help there on that side of the ball. Of course, the draft picks, you get yourself 5 draft picks here, including 2 firsts, 2 seconds. A top 10 pick in the deal. Well worth it. Love the move for Seattle for that, just because of all you get. You free up some cap space. It's kind of brutal. It's kind of a slap in the face. I get that, but It kind of stinks. It stinks. But trust me, as an Eagles fan, I remember when the team had to get rid of Donovan McNabb. That hurt. So if you're a Seahawks fan, I feel your pain. You know, it's a little different. I mean, Seattle actually won a Super Bowl with Wilson and made it back to a second one, whereas McNabb, we only made one Super Bowl and we lost it. I'm saying we as an Eagles fan, but yeah. Now, the other thing I do with the Seahawks is that they made another somewhat surprising move later in the day when they decided to release the quarterback of the defense, essentially, who they also got in the 2012 draft alongside, Russell Wilson, and Bobby Wagner. Wagner's been one of the best middle linebackers for the past decade in the league. Complete dominant force since he was drafted in the second round in 2012. It's super surprising that he isn't on the team. I'm just, they're freeing up cap space, and I get that. They want to rebuild. But no one was willing to trade for Bobby Wagner? I just don't understand that. Bobby Wagner is such a talented player. No one wanted to trade for him? Did you even try to trade him? Or did he just ask for his release and you kind of said, all right, we're going to respect, one of the best players in franchise history? A possible, probable future Hall of Famer. We're going to respect what he wants. If you did that, I respect that. If you cut him just because you weren't trying to trade him, little more suspect. Next, we're going to quickly just discuss the franchise tag players. First things first, Harold Landry of Tennessee Titans. He was not franchise tagged. That was a little bit of a head scratcher, but then they announced he signed a 5-year, $87 million deal. So that made sense in the end. It's just one of those things where the franchise tag is like a last resort, and clearly Tennessee and Landry didn't want to be in that position. So they decided, all right, we're just going to, if we can come to terms of a long-term deal, we're going to do it. So you got to respect that. It's a good move for both sides. Each side gets what they want. Long-term deal, financial stability for Landry, and if Landry starts producing, Tennessee gets him for relatively affordable price tag. Relatively. Now, the rest of the franchise tags, a lot of those big-name receivers that had the chance to hit free agency are not going to. Chris Godwin was tagged by the Buccaneers. No real surprise. Second year in a row, he got franchise tagged. If I'm Godwin, I do what Asante Samuel did with the Patriots back in 07, and I say, listen, the only way I sign this franchise tag is if we put in writing on this tag that I do not get tagged after the 2022 campaign. You cannot tag me. That's the only way I do it if I'm Godwin. Otherwise, I'm holding out because they're just tagging him. It's not fair to him. Year after year, if he just keeps playing on the franchise tag, it's decent money, but they're just going to use up his value. He's not getting the guaranteed money that he could, so it hurts him. We'll have to see what happens. Of course, he's coming off a torn ACL, so there was a lot of speculation with that anyway, had he hit free agency, but Cam Robinson of the Jaguars was tagged as well, and just like Godwin, this is his second year in a row getting franchise tagged, and just like I said with Godwin, Robinson should do the exact same thing, where he should say, listen, I want to get in writing that you cannot tag me after the season. You must sign me to an extension or let me walk as a free agent. My opinion, like Asante Samuel did, I would do that if I was either of these players or their agents. I would say, we're doing this. Enough is enough. If you want my guy, you need to sign him to a long-term deal, because it's not necessarily fair to either of these guys to just constantly be on franchise tags. Now, of course, Jacksonville does have the number 1 pick. There's a lot of speculation that they could go with a offensive tackle. We'll have to see what happens with that. Robinson, had he walked, it would make sense. But now you could just use Robinson on a 1-year deal, and whoever your first overall pick is, you put him at right tackle and slide him over to left if you let Robinson walk. Speculating a bit too much with that one. Next, we do have the Packers, who did tag Davante Adams. Made sense. Again, talented receiver. Now that you got Rodgers back, you give Davante Adams a tag. You kind of say, all right, Davante, whatever Aaron Rodgers wants, we want to do. We want to keep him happy. So everyone's happy in that respect. Obviously, Adams, extremely talented player. he was going to command a ton of money. They're still going to probably try to work out a long-term deal with him. But to me, it's going to come down to Aaron Rodgers. If Rodgers signed a 1-year deal, Devontae's probably going to play on the tag. If Rodgers signed a 3-year deal, Devontae's probably going to be fine with signing like a 3-year deal. So then we had a pair of tight ends get tagged as well. Dalton Schultz of the Cowboys and Mike Gesicki of the Dolphins both got the franchise tag. Now, Dalton Schultz, I was a little surprised that he got tagged because I'm not going to say he had one breakout year in 2021. He has showed a lot of flashes in the past as well, but it's still a little surprising that he jumped out. I mean, he was a talented player last year, and in 2020, so he's had 2 strong years. But I don't know if he's necessarily going to be worth the $11 million that the franchise tag gave him. I don't know if he was going to command that much money in free agency. Not a lot of articles I was looking at were expecting him to get the tag, especially with the Cowboys in such a difficult situation that they're in, looking at, potentially having to cut Amari Cooper to free up cap space. That's just crazy. But, I mean, he's still a talented player. I get that. But Blake Jarwin was still another strong player when he was the starting tight end for Dallas. So I'm surprised they didn't say, all right, you know what? If Schultz wants to test free agency, we're fine with that. We have Jarwin. But neither here nor there. Gesicki's a little more of an interesting situation just because he is considering fighting it and saying, well, I should get paid the tight end. I'm a tight end. You're naming me as a tight end, but I'm more of a receiver, so I want to get paid what receivers get. The difference is $18.5 million versus $11 million. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if he does appeal this decision. If he does, the Dolphins would be smart, in my opinion, to just try to sign Gesicki to a long-term deal before the appeal process. But if they go to an arbitration appeal, no one wins that. No one wins that. Then you got Kansas City putting a tag on offensive tackle Orlando Brown. They just made a big trade with Baltimore last year to get Orlando Brown, so it makes sense that they tag him. He played well. He helped keep that offensive line better than the 2020 offensive line, which isn't saying much. Talented player. We'll have to see what happens with him, but I think they want to work long-term with him because if he makes Patrick Mahomes feel healthy and happy, they got to just keep him. Jesse Bates was tagged by Cincinnati. Honestly, they kind of tagged him, but their goal is to sign him to a long-term deal. So to me, it's just kind of a panic. We're going to tag him, and we're not going to risk him leaving the team. But the tag's kind of like here's a franchise tag. You can't test free agency, but we don't want your name on this. We want to sign you long-term. I'm the type of fan who doesn't see the value in a superstar safety, paying him like $20 million a year. I do want to have strong safeties, but you don't need superstars. So, another tight end that I missed was David Njoku. I was shocked that they tagged David Njoku. He's a very talented player. I get that, but I don't necessarily think he's worth $11 million for a year. That's me. I know this was the most surprising tag of the season, so we'll have to see. I know that there's speculation that they could release Austin Hooper, save a couple $1 million with that, but I don't know. I don't know about that one. Mike Williams also got tagged by the Chargers, but this was just like the hope with Jesse Bates and probably David Njoku as well, where they tagged him and then later in the day they signed him to a 3-year, $60 million deal. More money than I was expecting him to get. I was expecting like a 3-year, $45 million deal, maybe upwards of 50. Good for him. He set the value. He set the market high. I don't know what's going to happen with him. He's a very streaky, inconsistent player, but good for him. Now, like I mentioned, a couple untagged players. Harold Landry, they already signed him to an extension. Tennessee did, so it is what it is. There's that. J.C. Jackson is going to be allowed to test free agency by the Patriots. That was surprising. He is older, I get that. He's 27, I guess that's older. But I was still surprised that they didn't tag him, so we'll see what happens there. So we definitely have some interesting things to look at. That was a busy day yesterday. And then, of course, today we've had the next big move. And correct me, if you think I'm crazy here, I sound like a broken record, but Carson Wentz has been traded. Yep. Less than a year in Indianapolis. And he spent one season in Indy, and now he's gone. He has been traded to the Washington Commanders. Like I said before, the Commanders were heavily linked to Russell Wilson, but Seattle decided, nah, we don't want him to go to we don't want to keep him in the NFC, we want him to go to the AFC. So the Commanders decided, all right, we will jump in and we're gonna get Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz obviously is an Eagles fan. We'll get to that in a minute, but Carson Wentz going back to the NFC East is going to be something. There was especially that Week 18 game against the Jaguars where it was a win and you're in. He did not look good. He wasn't able to do much. He wasn't even a game pacer. So, yeah. What they get in return is going to be a couple draft picks here. To my understanding, it's going to be a pair of thirds with the potential for the 2023 third round pick to escalate to a second. But this article I'm seeing, did they swap? So it's looking like they swapped second round picks as well in this draft, which is going to be interesting. Yeah, I can't 100% confirm that because it's still a new trade. But according to this CBS Sports article, it says that they're going to swap seconds this year, which the original post by Adam Schefter did not mention that, so that's why I wasn't 100% sure on that. But that's an interesting move. Washington is assuming his full salary. Now, there was a lot of speculation and rumors that Indy was going to either cut him or trade him. So now we know what happened. He has been traded back to the NFC East with the Washington Commanders. How do I feel about that as an Eagles fan? Well, if we get 2017 Carson Wentz going back to Washington, the NFC East is going to be scared, and they should be. But if we get 2021 Carson Wentz, who's a game manager, I'm not afraid. It's going to be intriguing to watch when the Eagles play Washington, whenever those two meetings may be. Now, the NFL may very well expedite one of those meetings to week 1. We'll have to see. But, I mean, it's going to be interesting. That's for sure. I still know that there's a lot of Eagles fans that wish Wentz was still an Eagle. So, we'll see what happens with that. But, it's kind of crazy. And really, other than that, there's not a lot of big things that have happened. But looking at the quarterback market in free agency, I mean, the best available quarterback is Mitch Trubisky. So that tells you about the state of the offseason and how it's going to go. The draft's going to be fun. I'm definitely looking forward to that. But for now, where we're at, it's one of those situations where who knows what's going to happen. It's gonna be an intriguing couple next month and a half. That's for sure. These next 2 months, month and a half, 2 months, will be very fun. I'm looking forward to it. We got NFL free agency. We got the draft coming up. So, yeah. Now, at the end of this video here, I'm just gonna quickly bring up a couple things here about the channel. So, if you're a viewer of the channel, you probably noticed I haven't been posting as much. I'll probably put out more videos soon. I've just been working on other things right now, so there's that. But I mean, I'm still gonna try to do videos here and there. I'm probably gonna do like an NFL offseason recap, but that won't be for a while. Obviously, there's no baseball right now, but yeah. Either ways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was me discussing the past 48 hours of the NFL season. So it's been crazy. We've had a lot of moves. The franchise tags are done. A couple contracts have been agreed to. And, of course, we had the surprising Calvin Ridley situation. And Bobby Wagner getting released. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a good rest of your day. Stay safe out there.